Welcome to the Marvel Champions Podcast. I am your host, Ryan, and always with my co-host, Scott.
What's up, Ryan?
I tricked you there. You didn't know I was going to do that, did you?
No, you too. That did not feel natural. That was a little odd there, Ryan.
I know. I knew we were going to be recording today, and I've been thinking about it all day. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Is it going to make sense? Is it going to work? So I just went for it.
Ryan, this reminds me of something that's been happening around Marvel Champions space. Just when you think that you're ready to hear the winners of this campaign contest, they just pull that rug right out from underneath you.
Oh, I know. They're having too much fun playing with all the submissions.
Yeah. I guess
Especially ours.
thwarted a little by some weather recently, so.
Oh, that's a good point. That area has been getting hammered by some pretty cold weather.
So, yeah. Hopefully we'll hear those winners. It sounds like they're going to do that at the beginning of next year, 2025. So,
2025?
Guess we'll just have to wait and see.
I know. I was hoping to win and get to enjoy that honor and sharing it with the family, though most of them would have no idea.
Well, Ryan, you can put that on your resume if you win. How about that? Does that sound good?
All right. Yep. Done. Accomplishments. Won a competition.
All right. What are we going to talk about tonight, Ryan?
Oh, that's right. I'm hosting. So tonight we're going to do another Versus. And we got some interesting ones this time. Normally we do maybe a hero, and sometimes we'll do an aspect. This time we're going to do, for both Versus match, aspect cards. But not only are they aspect, the challengers are both from Aggression and Justice. So this is going to be like a tag team episode, I guess.
Yeah, it's that Justice versus Aggression. I would say for a long time, those are probably one of the more popular aspects.
True.
Probably still for some, right? Red versus yellow, yellow versus red. Guess we're gonna find out who's gonna come out on top today. All those fighting, attack, love, and aggression heroes, or is it those justice characters that like to thwart the villains? Guess we're gonna find out tonight, Ryan.
That's right. So hit the sound bite, and now
me versus you.
All right, excellent job. Let's start it off. Now, should I do a Justice first, and then you do Justice on the next fight?
Yeah, that sounds good. You do the first set, Justice, and I'll take the second round, Justice.
Okay. And I think for this first matchup, it's a little special, especially with some stuff coming up.
Yeah, some shield support.
Ooh. So let's talk about the first shield support. It is going to be Surveillance Team. Justice aspect, cost 2 support, and has 3 Snoop counters that come in when it's played. And action, exhaust Surveillance Team and remove 1 Snoop counter from it. Remove 1 threat from a scheme. So for 2 cost, you essentially get 3 threat, but you get to control it over time.
I think that's pretty good. I think the nice thing about it is you kind of are able to do it when you need it. And then part of me looking at this card is like, what if those Snoop counters are in an alternate reality and Snoop Dogg became a shield agent and they're Snoop counters?
Okay.
Snoop-a-loop.
I think there's an alternate art version of that card. that's ready to be made at this point.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I like that if you're going full justice and playing off of, if it's the last threat removed or the card you need to have a certain amount, this can kind of take that threat that you need down. So if you need to set up those perfect little combos, I think this card can help with that. And you got a little bit of variety. Main schemes, side schemes. So it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's got its place in most Justice decks, though it kind of depends on what you're needing, because it's only one at a time. So if you're needing burst, events are the way to go. But even though I don't think we should necessarily incorporate into the judging of this card for this versus match, it is shield, and Justice does have a pretty strong shield archetype around its deck building, especially with Monica.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this card was just kind of there. I mean, some people use it, some people didn't, but when the Monica Ally came out, this card just soared into one of the best cards, or I guess combos maybe, for Justice.
Yeah, getting to pull one of that for free and like alongside the ally, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you add counters to it because of that ally, so it's very strong. But I don't think we should necessarily add it to this match, because it's the card versus card, not the combos versus the combos.
Okay. Well, I guess we need to talk about some aggression cards real quick.
Let's do it.
Now, my card from aggression is Tac Team. 3-cost support. It's a shield traded also. It uses 3 attack counters. And action, exhaust Tac Team and remove 1 attack counter from it. And you can deal 2 damage to an enemy. So it's like 3 for 6. And, yeah.
Which 3 for 6 is not bad for an aspect card, because when I think about it, you can pay for, was it melee? And is it melee that's 3 costs 5 damage?
Melee, isn't it 3 and 3?
Oh, maybe that's the 3 and 3. What am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of uppercut.
Uppercut, that's right. 3 costs for 5 damage.
Not to be confused with cut upper.
That's correct.
So I think this one has a similar feel, that if you need to bring a minion's health down or do that, that little bit of extra health without wasting a bigger attack card, this can kind of play into that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else can I say about Tac Team? It was good when the game first came out. When you had just the core box.
It's true. I think it does have its place for heroes that could struggle with tough, being able to just knock a tough, or potentially just kind of doing that extra little bit on minions for minion control.
And it isn't an attack, which is interesting, right?
Yes, yeah. Correct.
So it doesn't get retaliate. It is an action, so you can use an alter ego, which is kind of a cool little interaction there. Attacking on, not attacking, but dealing damage as an alter ego is a concept there.
Yeah. I think. Well, let's just point out the elephant in the room. Surveillance Team 2 cost, Tac Team 3 cost. Why the difference?
And what is that difference, Ryan?
Oh, you don't know it? I was asking you.
Oh. Well, I mean, the biggest thing is 2 for 3, which, if we do some of the math, isn't that great, but 3 for 6. So I think when we look at it, 2 for 3 and then 3 for 6. Now that I look at it, like at first sitting here thinking about this as we were talking about it, I was thinking Surveillance Team was probably better. But then Tag Team, I think by the numbers is actually better. But psychologically, when I see the 3 cost, I'm less likely to pay it, because if it's 4 effective resources, because itself plus the 3, I probably can't do more than just play this on my turn. But I could potentially do Surveillance Team with something else.
True. I agree. I think that 1 cost difference really makes a difference, because I agree. I think ultimately 6 damage for 3 costs, that's not a bad trade for an aspect card, and 3 threat for 2 costs isn't the worst either, though there are some events that are a little bit better. But when you break it down for aspect cards, paying a 3 for it for Tag Team is a little harder. It just feels harder. Almost like, like you said, it's like psychological. It's just harder to play.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I hadn't really thought about that until we are having this discussion.
That's right, this fight.
This versus.
But yeah, I'm trying to think, like, well, what can you do to Tag Team to make it 2? Because I feel like you're either going to adjust the counter limit or you're going to adjust the damage limit. And if you do 2 counters for 4 total damage, is it worth 2? And then, or do you keep it at 3 counters and change it to 1 damage? Now it's, 2 costs for 3 damage. It's kind of like, I don't know if that's even worth it.
Right. That's a tough one. I'm trying to think of any way to reduce the cost of this. I guess you could use a team building exercise if you were in hero form with a shield character. That's really the only reduction you've got.
I think if you have the shield liaison card, you could use that.
That does something too, doesn't it? But does it reduce the cost of a shield card?
Yeah, I think it's basically team building exercise for shield.
Or you could waste whatever the support player side scheme is, which I just don't. You wouldn't. There are better supports to use for that.
Probably.
So, all right, Ryan. We've heard the tale of the tape. What's your ruling? What's your judgment on this versus?
Ultimately, I would have to give it to Surveillance Team. That cost is a pretty big difference, and ultimately, I've played Surveillance Team more in decks than I have ever Tag Team.
I'm going to agree with you, which is tough because the points we made, I think Tag Team by the numbers is a better card, but I don't think I would ever play it now in the game. I think there's other cards that do other things. You can't modify Tag Team with attack modifiers because it's not an attack. I guess you could make the same argument for Surveillance Team, but I don't know. I think the overall winner is Surveillance Team.
Yeah. I think with the introduction of Maria Hill, I think you could see Tag Team become more viable, but even then, I'm not sure.
But then if we take your point where Justice has the better shield overall.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll give it to Surveillance Team.
Surveillance Team wins.
All right, hopefully aggression can pull itself back up off the mat here.
Yes, I agree. Do you want to start off this time?
All right, so I'm doing Justice this round.
Go for it, yep.
Round 2 of Versus. All right, so I've got a cool card. It comes with a couple of different arts, I think. Had a reprint in the Mutant Wave.
It did.
The card I am talking about is a 1-cost event in Justice called Swift Retribution. It is an attack, hero action, Attack the villain schemes. Deal 4 damage to the villain. It's pretty quick, pretty simple. Villain schemes, then you deal the damage. And that's it.
That's it. It's a way to deal damage in Justice, and I feel like there's not a ton of those.
I think the other cool thing with this one is you could play with cards that typically prevent some type of scheme or threat being placed in which you normally think of in like the villain phase, and it adds like a new concept for the player phase. And I think the obvious thing here too is there's no cost arrow, so they don't actually have to have completed the scheme. They just have to initiate a scheme, so you could pair it with a confuse.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, so not bad. 1 for 4. It's pretty good.
Yeah, 1 for 4 is not bad. Yeah, I think well, you're playing Justice, so generally you're going to be able to handle some scheming. And since it's on the player's turn, you have a little bit more control of how that plays out. Because, I mean, most of the time when you're dealing with threat, it's going to be on the villain phase. They scheme, and you're like, dang, that's a lot. And then they scheme again, you're like, man, that's a lot. And then they scheme again, you're like, well, I mean, how are you going to win? Which has happened a ton. But here you can control that. They scheme, cool. Now I'm going to thwart, get that back down. I'm going to stay in hero form. They're not going to scheme again unless you get unlucky. And you're good to go. Dealing 4 damage to that villain, not too bad for only 1 cost.
Yeah, and I like what you said. I think Justice needs a little bit of attack help from time to time. So I think this was a good addition.
Yeah, I agree. And if you can plan it out really well, you might have some thwart cards that can benefit from having at least some scheme on the main scheme, so that you can thwart some of that off to activate some more abilities. Because we've played games where I've been Justice and I've super justiced, and there was no threat, and so I couldn't do some of the fun things that Justice can do because there's no threat.
Yep. And I think another thing, as you were talking, I was thinking we're going to talk some preparations of Black Widow. This is a way to activate the villain in player phase, so you can kind of do some more things that typically think of for the villain phase for characters like that.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and discuss the Challenger, the aggression card, Toe to Toe. It's a 1 cost event. Attack, hero, action. Choose an enemy. That enemy attacks you. Deal 5 damage to that enemy. So I think it's important to note there's no arrows on this. And I think, honestly, the biggest difference between the two, other than, thwart and attack, is this one you get to choose an enemy. It could be a minion or the villain.
So what's your implications there, Ryan?
You can use this as a minion killer, essentially.
Right.
And the minion's not going to be attacking as much unless that's villainous, so...
It's true. Yeah, you can kind of plow through some of those smaller minions. And I guess you could pair it with some, upgrades or something that cause overkill.
No,
it's not a bad thing. And then you could pair it with heroes that like for the villain or an enemy to attack them, that gain some kind of benefit.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of, say, Ghost Spider. She's all about... this would also work for Swift Retribution. She has a lot of responses, so these type cards are good to have if you have them in your hand and you didn't use them in the villain phase.
Yeah, and just want to point out this one also had a Mutant Wave reprint, so
That's right. That's right.
All right, 1 for 5 with an attack. Did you
That's
state
pretty
that
good.
they could be or stunned? You could still perform it with a stun?
I did not explicitly say that, but yes, they could be stunned or whatever method to prevent the enemy from activating.
Right.
I'm trying to think of some good combos with them. I'm trying to think like Iceman could potentially benefit from something like that. I'll have to look into some different heroes.
Off the top of my head, I know Wolverine likes to take low amounts of damage to draw cards. He's got a upgrade or support, whatever it is. Berserker or something or other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could even use this for like X-23 so that you can ready potentially.
He takes that lighter damage, yeah.
Yeah. So that could be an option. There's definitely some options with it.
Yeah.
That's what I will say with toe-to-toe is there's more options on what you do with it than there is a swift retribution. I don't know if you can do the same thing as swift retribution, choose an enemy that enemy thwarts, deal 4 damage to that enemy. I don't know if it can work that same way. Maybe they tried it and it just didn't make sense. But I will say that toe-to-toe a lot more diverse in how you play it.
All right. But who's the winner, Ryan?
Oh man. I think I love Swift Retribution for what it does, giving Justice that damage that it so desperately needs. But ultimately, I think toe-to-toe has, well, I don't know, 1 for 5 or 1 for 4. I think I'm going to give it to toe-to-toe. I like the diversity of the minions, and I like the 5 damage.
I am going to... I see your point with have the ability to make it a minion or versus the villain, whereas Swift Retribution is only the villain. But I think I like Swift Retribution more due to the fact that you're not taking any damage.
I do see that one. Yeah, that is really nice. I give you that.
Because I think psychologically, just putting some threat onto the main scheme is better than being like, oh, now I've got to choose, do I defend? I guess you could combo it a little bit like defense, right? If you've got like a retaliate or some, things like that set up. Kind of double dip there, but I don't want to have to deal with figuring out how to prevent some damage or taking additional damage on my turn.
Yeah, I see that.
So for me, I think it's Swift Retribution.
I will note, as you were saying that, now I forgot what I was going to say. I had this really good idea, and then I was like, oh, wait, no, that didn't work out. Well, shoot, what was I going to say?
That you were real excited for our end-of-year episode?
I'm really excited for our end-of-year episode. That is an accurate thing to say. So, well, let me go to one thing. If you had to choose between the alternate arts for Swift Retribution and toe-to-toe, do you like the X-Men version or the Avengers version more?
For Swift Retribution, that one's tough. I really like the Avengers version, but the art on the Mutant X-Men Wave 1 is pretty rad.
Yeah.
But you gotta throw it out to Moon Knight. Moon Knight's on that one. It's one of the only few cards we've got with Moon Knight on it, so...
Yeah. I would choose the Moon Knight Swift Retribution. That's a pretty cool, him stomping on the Jeep.
Yeah.
Now with toe to toe, I think I like the X-Men version more.
I think so too. Nothing like Psylocke stabbing Wolverine's forehead.
That's always a good time. So, I still can't remember that the thing that I forgot I was going to say. I had a good point to sway you over to toe to toe, but now I've lost it. It's a real shame.
Well, good thing I have swift retribution for you, Ryan.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we were split. So.
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
Sorry. Real quick. I had to note that I think toe to toe is a better card for any player count. Swift Retribution is not as good in solo, I feel like.
Okay.
But in multiplayer, I do think it's a lot better.
I can see that. Because you're saying the threshold is higher on the main scheme and all that. So, like, just dumping 4 really isn't a huge deal if the threshold's like 35 or something.
Yeah, playing Swift Retribution on Rhino True Solo is a lot different than playing Swift Retribution on a 4-player Rhino.
Okay. But then I think similarly, toe-to-toe becomes easier to play if it's multiplayer and other people can... I mean, let's just talk about a Nightcrawler, right? You can just have him, take the attack.
Oh, yeah, I have not thought about Nightcrawler with this card. That might be fun.
Yeah. So.
All right. Yep. Go back to what you're saying. I think you're gonna tell the audience something.
No, that I'm right and you're wrong. So.
Oh well, come on.
Got him. So, what I was thinking is that's a different card. Turntables, Tables of Terror. I don't know. So if I do a poll, which verses do you think would be better? What do we want to hear the community, our listeners? Which do you think they would want to weigh in more?
I think they should weigh in on Swift Retribution and Toe-to-Toe.
Okay.
Also so put in the card
decision.
Art. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I can do a bonus one, but we'll see. I think if you're listening, I put it out on the Spotify. So run over to Spotify, do the poll, and we'll follow up in a couple weeks. See what we find out.
Yep. But we appreciate everyone listening. Just be ready. I think our next episode's going to be our end of year awards ceremony. So if you haven't done your survey, you better do it really quick because probably the end of Sunday, I would guess. Yeah, get in there and fill it out.
Yep, it's gonna be done. All right, you're hosting, so why don't you close us out?
This is no. We appreciate everyone listening to the Marvel Champions podcast. You can always write to us on Marvel Champions Pod at gmail.com. And if you want to turn from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. Good job, Ryan.
Yes.